Good evening. Welcome to the new guys. Welcome to the regulars. We're glad to have you here. I'm excited about tonight's live stream. Tonight we're going to talk about something we haven't spoken about in a while, and that is taking responsibility for possibly your wife's issues, right? It doesn't make sense, right? How do I take responsibility for my wife's issues? I'm kidding. It's not possible. It's really not possible. You can't take responsibility for her issues. But the question over here is, what do we do? What do you do if you know for a fact your wife has issues that have nothing to do with the marriage? Okay? So we're going to talk about that tonight in just a minute. And, it's typical that just about every live stream, one of the themes in this group is one of the principles I believe very strongly in, and I promote it all the time when I talk about it and I explain it, is owning your marriage. The man taking responsibility. I firmly believe that God has given us men the ability to lead our lives, to lead our wives with love, with leadership, with an alignment within ourselves that is magnetic, that is powerful, that can help our family. And I firmly believe we have the skills necessary to do it. And the question always is how to do it. But, and I talk about a lot, okay, what does it mean taking responsibility? But the question that comes up very often, is what do you do? What do you do if you know for a fact that your wife has some challenges? She has had some challenges before she met you, before she knew you, before she fell in love with you. Your wife had some issues in her past, whether it was some form of a trauma, whether it was from some form of an abuse, maybe even a sexual abuse, or she just comes from a dysfunctional family where she didn't have any role models of parents of what a happy marriage is, of what a healthy marriage is, or what a healthy relationship is, right? So what do you do in a situation when you know for a fact, hey, all right, my wife has issues that have nothing to do with me. They predate our relationship. How do I take responsibility? What do I do? And can I do something to fix it? Is it at all possible? All right. Let me know how many guys relate to this. Let me know in the comments how many of you right now listening to this have experienced, where you want to work on the marriage, you intend to work on the marriage, you're actually doing whatever you can, whatever you think you should, whether it's working or not is besides the point, but there are certain things that you feel like, one second, she's being held back psychologically, emotionally, by something in her past that has nothing to do with me. How many of you have experienced that? Okay? It's important to address it, because otherwise, if we just, keep on, talking about taking responsibility without understanding this, it could be very frustrating and painful. And sometimes you may even feel like somebody, like myself, you might feel like I'm judging you, right? Or criticizing you if you're not taking responsibility, although I don't do that, but it could be implied, from all the training. So I figured tonight, and one of you guys actually suggested it to me. He say, hey, because I once made a video on, and it's not here in the Facebook group, it's on YouTube. It's a 10-minute video about, your wife's deep-rooted issues. And I figured, what, let's go a bit deeper. Let's explore this and, and break it down over here within our Facebook group. Anyway, but back to what we're doing over here. There are two approaches over here. So there are two types of guys who are in a relationship or in a marriage where the wife seems to be stuck. And, one of them falls into what I call the pity party, bucket, so to speak, where it's like they just get used to it. The guy will get used to, okay, this is the way it is, and we don't have the intimacy we want. We don't have the connection we want. We don't have the laughter. We don't have the trust and the friendship. But you know what? I'm there. I'm committed. I've made my vows, and I'm going to stick it out for her sake, for the sake of the kids, because of my religious faith, whatever the reason is. There's like a certain commitment to the marriage on the one hand, but on the other hand, there's a certain amount of self-pity, like, poor me, this is not fair, this is frustrating, I don't like this, and this is just the way it is, and you know what? And poor me, I got myself a bad deal. And that's one type of personality, and some people And to be honest, you may not like it, but it's true. Some guys can live there for years and decades and really ride out their lifetime in such a marriage and to the end of their lives. And, you know, it's like certain people, the reality is, and this is not me, okay? This is just not me. If you know anything about me, that's not me. But certain people are they're more scared of divorce than of living in a frustrated marriage. And there's some people that are more scared of living in a difficult, painful marriage, what I call a limping marriage, than they are of divorce. And I'm like the second category. You know, it doesn't mean that, you know, you can't benefit from what I'm saying, but I'm just sharing a little bit about I was more afraid personally of living in a marriage where my emotional, intimate, intellectual needs are not being met, that my wife doesn't really feel my love, she doesn't really trust me, she doesn't truly know me. That was my bigger fear than of divorce, okay? That's just, and a lot of guys are like that as well. So my point is, there are some guys, and I'm curious from the guys watching, how many of you are on the point of like, you feel stuck, but you really honestly could look back at yourself and say, hey, I'm in a pity party for a while. And then there is a second category. The second category of guys who are like, I'm not in a pity party. I don't feel bad for myself. I am determined to fix my marriage. I am determined to have an incredible relationship. I'm absolutely committed to making sure I'm a role model for my kids. I just don't know how to do it. But God, if I saw a strategy that actually works, I would do it. And you know, and you can answer this question to yourself. I'm curious. If you want to put it in the comments, it's fine. But more importantly than what you put in the comments, although I want to see it, is answer this to yourselves. Which category are you in? Are you in the category of like you feel like you have given up? Or like you're in the fight, you just don't know how to fight. Like in a good fight, right? Like you're fighting for your marriage, you're fighting for your relationship, you're fighting for your next 30, 40, 50 years, God willing. So let me know. Now, and I'm going to talk to the second group of guys, because to the first group of guys who feel stuck and just in the self-pity, you know, I can't really help you, honestly, because there are so many forums online, there's so many people online who are in the same situation, but they feed each other weakness instead of men feeding each other strength. And a lot of groups, they're feeding each other weakness by, you know, justifying being stuck or telling a guy, yeah, you know, we feel for you, and you know, keep up the good fight. But there's not actual support in how to do it, and so therefore there's sort of like, it's just perpetuating the cycle of feeling like a victim. You know what I mean? So that's not who I'm talking to. I'm talking to guys who don't feel like a victim, or they don't want to feel like a victim. They want to win their marriage. They want to win their wife. They want to win at their life. They just don't know how to do it. So if that's you, I would love to hear from you. But most importantly, what you have to know is that you're not the only one. Like, that is the first myth you have to bust. And I know intellectually, you know you're not the only one. You're in a Facebook group over here. We have a couple of thousand guys. So obviously intellectually you know it. But that's not enough. You also have to know on a gut level, on an emotional level, that you're not the only brother in this fight. There are many men who have gone through it and come out successfully. And there are many men who are going through it right now. And tonight we're going to talk about what it takes to bust out of this. What are the fundamental principles to jumpstart your relationship, to jumpstart your awareness of what needs to be done. The first thing is to know you're not the only one. And I'm going to give you a truth bomb over here, and it's a reality check. And you'll know it's true from, you know, some of you will know it, and some of you will not know it even after I say it. And here's the reality. If it's true, now bear with me, all right? And I'm gonna ask a question. I want to see the answers over here. If it's true that you're a good husband, you're a great husband, you're doing all that you can, and you're doing all the things that are right. I'm not saying perfect, but if it's true that you are a very good husband and the whole problem is coming from your wife, let me know in the comments who is able to help you. It's a trick question. I'm curious in the comments. Let me know who is able to help you. If you're doing everything right and your wife is doing the things that are wrong, or she's stuck in the past because of things which are beyond her control, who is able to help you? And the correct answer is, it was almost like a dumb question. Nobody. Nobody can help you. Because if you're doing everything right and she's doing everything wrong, she's the one who has to get help. Right? And a lot of guys actually, believe this, which is why they're stuck. And, nobody really wants to say, hey, I'm doing everything right and she's doing everything wrong. Most people have enough sense of self-respect not to say that, right? But on an emotional level, there's a certain... Let me know if you know what I'm talking about, all right? Let me know in the comments. Be honest, all right? We're just men over here. How many of you feel like, hey, I'm really doing everything I can and she's the problem, right? If you feel that way, and I'm not saying I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying it's unhelpful because you block yourself from getting the help that you need. Now, let's go to another step, all right? Okay, let me just check quickly. Exactly, David. Nobody can help you. And Aaron, thank you for the suggestion for tonight's topic. Just want to give a shout out to Aaron. It was his idea that we should that I should focus more on this one. Thank you, appreciate it. So that's a reality check. But let's go to reality check number 2. Think about it. Has there been a period in your life, in your relationship with your wife, where she seemed fine, your intimacy was fine, your connection was fine, you seemed to be doing well, right? Think about that, right? Why is it that we see very often that there could be a relationship, let's say her trauma or her dysfunctional parents went on until she was 22, 23, and then she moved out of the house, and her trauma was before she was 25. She got married when she was 30, and for the first 7 years she had a great marriage till 37, and then suddenly, for some reason, the trauma came back. The marriage started deteriorating. Let me know if you relate to this. This is very common. Why is it that for the first 5, 6, 7, 10 years, or 2 years, whatever it is, whatever period of the dating and the relationship where there was passion, there was respect, there was a mutual understanding, where you guys really understood each other, why is it that suddenly, decades later, years later, her deep-rooted issues that happened 2 decades ago became the issue that prevents and gets in the way of you and her having an incredible relationship? Right? Obviously, the answer is, I'm sure some of you guys know this already, the answer is because when she fell in love with you, the connection she had with you dominated her life. In a good way, not a bad way. It overpowered her negative emotions, her feelings about the past. So her love for you, her passion for you, her desire for you, and her respect and interest in you and for you overcame whatever dysfunction she came from. It overcame and it overpowered, and it sort of eclipsed whatever trauma she's been through. Because you were her knight in shining armor. It's a bit cliche, but there's a truth to that. There's very much a truth to that. When a woman falls in love, there is that element of where she looks up to her husband, to her man, as like like, wow, you are the solution to my life. In a healthy way, not necessarily an unhealthy way, but like, you make me complete. You fill up that hole, that gap in my heart. And vice versa. Men have it for their wives too. When you meet your wife, your soulmate, or that person who you just know is right for you, there's that sense of connection where you feel like, man, this is it. This is half of me. This is a second half of me. The better half of me. However you want to call it. Okay? So a lot of guys know this intuitively on some level. They understand, hey, if she fell in love with me once and things were fine, why is it that suddenly things are not fine? And the reason for that is, over time, that there are things that accumulate between a couple where he stops being the knight in shining armor, where the husband stops being, not on purpose, not deliberate, just about nobody does this on purpose, but it happens over time. There's an accumulation of sort of the emotional debris, what I call, where there's this disconnect starts coming in, where she doesn't feel that you're her knight in shining armor. She doesn't feel like you can, lead her and love her the way she needs it. So that when that goes away, suddenly that past trauma start surfacing. And I'm not saying I'm an expert on trauma, by the way. My expertise is marriage, okay? And there are other ways to deal with trauma as well. But, and you know, there are ways that people can heal their own trauma, which is ideal and it's great. I'm talking about in a situation where I'm talking to guys, I'm talking to men, I'm talking to husbands. If you're in a situation where she hasn't addressed her trauma, where she hasn't fixed her trauma, where she hasn't done, or she hasn't found the type of, you know, help or therapy, whatever she needs specifically for trauma. Okay, what you can do about it and what you need to understand about it is that there is a lot of power within you, and the proof is very simple. You once had that power. Simple as that. You once had that power. You once, you know, wore her knight in shining armor. So the first step over here is like, yes, like if you're in a place where like you want to take responsibility, you want to heal the marriage, you want to fix, you know, so to speak, fix her, lead her, and love her in a good way, not in a controlling way, but you just don't know how to. There are really 4 things you have to understand about this. The first one is it comes with a decision. You have to make a decision to tap into that part of her that fell in love with you, which also means to tap into the part of you that she fell in love with, to tap into that part of your leadership, that part of your manhood, that part of your soul or spirit, however you understand it, whatever your religious or your spiritual orientation is, to tap into that part of you. It's a decision. Nobody can do it. I can try to inspire it. It won't happen unless you, in the privacy of your own thoughts, have a deep look at yourself and say, hey, I want to tap into this part of me. I know it once existed. I want it again. Number 2, stop blaming. Stop blaming her. Stop blaming her and stop blaming her traumas, her past issues. Stop blaming her parents or her abuse, things that are outside of your direct control. It doesn't mean those things are not partially responsible, but the key over here is to take responsibility, and listen carefully. Take this, which is key number 3. Take responsibility. Take 100% responsibility for yourself, for your marriage. And when I say take responsibility, listen, brothers, okay? Let me know. And by the way, let me know so far if you guys are following, if this makes sense. You know, if it's give me a 10 if you totally get this, or a lower number if it's 6 out of 10 or 5 out of 10. All right. By the way, I'm going to comment about that itch soon. All right. In fact, I'll do it now just in case I forget, in case I don't see the comment anymore. Someone wrote this like, people have a 7 to 10 year itch. That is not true. All right. We're married, me and Malky are married for over 17 years now, God willing. Right now, we're in a much better place than we were married for, 5 years or 4 years. Incomparably better. Incomparably better. And it didn't happen by mistake. And this idea of a 7 to 10 year itch, or all these different types of things like, marriage ruins a good relationship, and all these, it's just, and I'm not commenting about a specific person. It's a philosophy. It comes from a bitterness. It comes from a way of not taking responsibility. It's a way of saying, I don't take responsibility for my life because it's a cultural thing. And after 5 to 10 years, we just become providers, or we're recyclable or something like that. And it's simply not true. But strategically, right? The step 3 is to take responsibility for your life and to stop blaming. Step 2 is to stop blaming, and step 3 is take responsibility. What does take responsibility mean, right? How many of you guys want to take responsibility? Let me know. Just about, I'll predict what's going to happen. And everybody, just about everybody says they want to take responsibility. And quite a few guys mean it. The question over here is how to take responsibility. When I say take responsibility, I do not mean take responsibility for everything she says which isn't true, for every one of her accusations, for her fears, for her phobias, for her emotions, for her feelings, for her opinions which aren't true, whether they're about you or whether they're about your relationship or whether they're about her life. I'm not saying take responsibility and she can say or do anything that's wrong and you just have to try to fix her issues. No. I'm saying take extreme ownership for yourself in a way that's going to heal the relationship. It does not mean just become a better person, become a better man, meditate, drink green juice, and, work out and, have gratitude. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's not what I mean, okay? What I mean is become better at understanding what are the things that are holding her back. And what I call it, I've spoken about it quite a few times over here in the Facebook group. You have to identify the exact things that are holding her back. What are what I call the 3 to 5% of your personality? The things that, without you realizing over time, you said or did. Again, no judgments. It does happen almost automatically, that start pushing her away, that start ruining the other 95 to 97% of your effort, and blocks her from feeling your love. That's the key. Because if she felt your unconditional love, if she really trusted you, if your effort was going into her heart and she had the correct opinion of you, then what would happen is she would feel your love and you would be her hero and the knight in shining armor, the same way you were when she fell in love with you. When she fell in love with you, she was still broken from past relationships. She was still hurt from past abuse. She was still affected by having dysfunctional parents or not having a role model in her life, and yada, yada, yada. There's probably a couple other dozen ways a woman can be affected going into a relationship. But what overpowered that was her trust in you, her connection to you, and her love for you and from you. And what happens over time, when a woman stops feeling that love, and there's usually about 3 to 5% that guys are saying or doing, assuming you're a good guy, assuming you really love her, right? There is an assumption in everything I've said so far. Let me know if you're with me, guys, all right? I see quite a few 10s and an 8 as well. So if you assuming you really, really do love her, and she doesn't really feel and trust your love, then there are things that have happened over time that, without you realizing, prevented her from feeling that love. And that is a fundamental principle. And that's going to prevent healing. And that's going to prevent, healing from trauma specifically. But that is important. That's what I call strategic ownership. It's not just about taking responsibility. It's not just about not blaming, because quite frankly, I'll be honest with you, brother, it's impossible not to blame your wife. If you don't feel you're making any progress in your marriage, if sooner or later you're going to blame her. And even if you don't blame her verbally and you don't say to her, you officially blame her for the problems in the relationship, but she's going to feel that energy from you. Women are very intuitive. They're going to feel that emotional energy. They feel that resentment. They feel that frustration. They can see it on your face, right? They can see it in your body language. So if you're not making progress, you're going to feel sooner or later that, that level of subconscious blame. So it's important to take, not just, take responsibility, but to take strategic responsibility. And that's exactly what I help guys do. And in a moment, I'll show you how you can reach out to get that help. But it's important to understand that, because the biggest factor I've found in healing trauma, there are two factors. One of them is something that I don't do, which is the woman herself going to get the help she needs. And there are some forms of therapy or support groups or 12-step programs that will help, that have been proven to help. But we're talking about a situation where she's not getting the help or she doesn't want to get the help. What I've seen that has worked in that situation is the guy, the husband, the lover, the man stepping up. And yes, you are being asked to step up to a higher level. There's no doubt about it. You are being asked to deal with perhaps some challenges that other men don't deal in their marriage. But this is, if you believe in God, God has given this to you. And if you don't believe, then the universe has given it to you. And, and this is when you push through this, you bring out a much greater strength within yourself, and people around you notice it. Okay, so that's the key. Essentially, just to recap it, is to make a decision to take strategic responsibility, to stop blaming, to understand that there's only about 3 to 5% of what you're saying or doing which needs to be changed, and to understand the final piece, which I sort of touched on but I didn't say clear enough, is that the biggest thing holding back a woman is the image she has of you. So if she doesn't feel like you're her hero, if she doesn't feel like you're her leader and her lover, it doesn't really make a difference what you say or do. She won't associate what you're saying or doing with love. She may associate it with some sort of a commitment. She may think that she may even think that you're trying to control her, or that you're trying to manipulate her, or you're trying to force her emotions, or you're trying to get something in exchange. But what she won't feel, I can promise you, is love if she has the wrong opinion of you. Right? If you let me know in the comments if you know what I'm talking about. If your wife is stuck with the wrong opinion of you in her head, right? She feels that you're jealous, or she feels that you're resentful, or she feels that Like I said before, she feels you're controlling and manipulative. You will not be, no matter what you do. In fact, the more you do, the more you're actually going to hurt your relationship, because she associates that with a form of control, with a form of manipulation, with a form of, in some cases, desperation. So the point is, when that image kicks in, she doesn't feel like you're her knight in shining armor, and that's the key. And that's why it's so important to dial in, not just take responsibility, but take strategic responsibility by identifying that 3%, by identifying that 5%, and making those changes. And guys who want to explore what those changes look like, you can just type 100% responsibility in the comments, and we'll have somebody reach out to you. Because what it comes down to is, yes, I cannot help every single situation, but certain situations we can help. Like if your wife if you are currently an active addict, drug, alcohol, porn, we cannot help active addicts. It's not compatible with what we do. If your wife is an addict, we might be able to help you, but you're still going to need help from like a 12-step support group. If she's an addict, like a drug, alcohol addict, look, what I do will not be enough. I'll be straight up with you. But otherwise, if it's just like deep-rooted issues and you want to explore what it looks like to work together with me, then write down 100% responsibility. If you're ready to take action. And just I want to wrap up with a little common sense. I'm very curious about seeing your biggest distinctions. What was the biggest takeaway you guys have from our training here tonight? But I want to wrap up with an important point. When we talk about turning around your marriage, let's figuratively speaking, let's say, some marriages, some of you guys over here might have a marriage that's just 20 pounds overweight. I'm speaking in an emotional sense just to help you understand. Some marriages, might have a form of marriage cancer, which we talk about many times, marriage cancer, in other videos, so you can check them out if you're new. But some marriage cancers can be like 50, 100, or even 150 pounds overweight. That does not change overnight, typically. It usually does not change. It's sort of like losing weight. You may be doing the right thing, and you'll lose weight gradually, but you're not going to lose 150 pounds in a week. It's actually dangerous, very, very dangerous. And so I want you to understand that this is a process, reversing pain, reversing confusion, and reversing, a disconnect that has existed between your wife, in some cases decades, or in some cases years, but in many cases it has gone on longer than you're aware of. Like the woman in her mind, let me know if you relate to this, that the woman in her mind feels that she's been in more pain. She's been in pain for a longer period than you know. So in your mind, she may have been suffering for 6 months, and then she says, hey, really, it's been 8 years that I've been bothered by this, right? Let me know in the comments if you know what I'm talking about. In order to heal that disconnect, it does take time. Sometime more, sometime less. I want you to have a mature understanding that we're talking about a process. We're not talking about an overnight fix. Some guys ask, they reach out, they say, what can I do for this and this and this? And I send them a training and they don't even watch it. It's like, there is a process to fixing a real problem, right? If you had a real, what is it called? A root canal, right? You wouldn't text an expert and say, how do I fix my root canal? How do I fix it? Well, there is a process, right? You may have to study what type of endodontist you need. Anyway, there's a process, okay? And if you need the help, type 100% responsibility, and somebody on my team will reach out to you and have a conversation to see, if we can explore helping you or not, what the strategy should be, how we should approach it, or if we cannot help you. I'm very curious what your comments were, what your biggest takeaway. I'm very, very curious. What is your biggest takeaway? What is the biggest aha moment and distinction you got from tonight's class? I will check it out. All right, my friends, and have a good evening. God bless you, and take care.